Welcome back to Formula One Bet. My name is Noah Mosley, and thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. In this video, we will be previewing the odds for the 2024 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix weekend. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. Alrighty, before we get into the preview odds for the Imola Grand Prix weekend, we have to go ahead and recap the Miami Grand Prix. So the Miami Grand Prix was actually pretty exciting to watch this year, and I think with it being a sprint weekend, definitely helped out the hype around the Grand Prix, at least here in the United States it did. As for the on-track racing, I thought it was a lot better than what we had last year. A lot more action on track, and I think that's aided to the sprint, but also I think it also helps knowing that we actually have a car that can contend with Red Bull now. And so being able to see Lando Norris in the Grand Prix beat out Max outright on pace was extremely impressive in my opinion. Now, necessarily did Lando get a bit lucky with how the safety car worked out and the strategy? Yes. But, after we saw the safety car hit, Lando was able to withstand Max and still, have a pace advantage on Max for the rest of the race. And so I think it's really interesting going into the Imola Grand Prix on where that comparison is going to be between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris when it comes to pace, and then, also factoring in Oscar Piastri with McLaren as well. He only had half of the updates in the last Grand Prix, and so it'll be interesting to see what kind of performance he can put up. So but yeah, with that being said, the Miami Grand Prix was a great weekend. Unfortunately, wasn't a great weekend for our main man Logan, and I think that's just kind of swirling around with the rumors, saying that there's a possibility that Kimi Antonelli could possibly be taking his seat this year. And so we obviously don't want to see that happen with Logan. Other news coming out between the break, we actually saw some news with Alex Albon extending his contract with Williams Racing. So we will see him with the team in the next coming years. With that being said, I believe that Alex is very passionate with Williams. Believe that, him and James Vowles can definitely turn the team around, get it from the last team on the grid back up to the front in the good old days when Mansell was racing with them. So it'll be interesting to see if they are able to make that progression happen, coming out of the new regulations in 2026. So with that being said, I think it's definitely good for the team that Alex decided to stay. He's a driver that has a lot of experience on the grid, and it goes to show that he truly believes in what they're doing there and believes that they are trending in the right direction to get them back to where he wants. Because I feel like Alex is definitely a driver that can be in a top contending seat. He's shown that he can put impressive performances in a Williams, even though the start of his career was a little rough. So I'm glad to see Alex staying on the grid in the next coming years, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when the new regulations hit in 2026. Alrighty, now with looking at the Imola Grand Prix weekend, the track itself is composed of 19 corners, where this track is composed of quite a bit of straights with a couple of low-speed corners. So if you have a lot of straight line speed, this track will definitely suit well for you and your car. And, also coming into this race, there are a couple of different teams bringing some upgrades with the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes. And so they're banking on some pretty big pace advantages coming into the weekend. It will be interesting to see if their cars will have a lot less drag on them to get them to where they need to be in qualifying and hopefully in the race pace as well. But I think that this track will be, I would say, all right. It doesn't really provide a lot of action in the past. but the track itself has a lot of history. So I would say it could be interesting, especially because we didn't race here at all last year. So, and so far, a lot of the races this year have been pretty sufficient, even though, you know, we haven't had a race for the lead too many times. A lot of the racing behind first place has been pretty good. And so hopefully we'll have a lot of that action again this weekend. Get into our predictions for the 2024 Emilia Grand Prix. So starting off for our shot in the dark to take pole position for the Emilia Grand Prix is Oscar Piastri. Now Oscar is sitting at plus 3,100 odds over on FanDuel, and Oscar is coming into the weekend with a full set of upgrades for his car, and last week we saw Lando Norris have that full set of upgrades, and he actually ended up winning the race. It was pretty clear that McLaren had the pace advantage when it came to the race pace on the medium and the hard tires. Now, in regards to the qualifying pace on the soft tires, it didn't really work out that great, but they were able to make up the advantage in the race itself. And so I think that with Oscar having the full set of upgrades on his car this weekend, we saw him, get pretty advantageous in the last Grand Prix, was able to overtake a couple of times, got in his elbows out a couple of times, I believe, with Lewis as well, if I recall correctly. And so, yeah, it was just good to see Oscar, and he's just one of those drivers that is just not afraid. If he knows that he has the pace, he is going to overtake you, and that's what I respect the most about him, even with his age and his experience level there. So I would say go ahead, lock him in as your shot in the dark to take pole position. Next up, who I have for my potential lock to take pole position is Carlos Sainz. Now, Carlos is sitting at plus 2,300 odds over on FanDuel, and honestly, I think this is a slap in the face to Carlos by FanDuel, having him at this high of odds, and with his past performances, this year, I think that he has been a top qualifier throughout the remainder of the year, and with Ferrari bringing their upgrade package, I think that it's easily possible for Carlos to end up on pole position. So I think with these odds, it is a good bet to lay down, even if he isn't going to necessarily get it. I think it's a good chance, just because if their upgrade package is as strong as they are anticipating, then we could easily see them ascend, as they were already not very far behind Red Bull, going into Miami. And we saw that they were pretty comparable. Maybe Red Bull still had a slight advantage, but as soon as Ferrari introduces those upgrades, they'll have an advantage, and it will be key to see where they contend with McLaren, see if their upgrade package is able to overstep them or not. So I'm actually excited going into this Grand Prix to kind of see what will happen, because it's actually not as black and white as it has been for the past couple of years. So lock in Carlos Sainz for your potential lock. I have for my best bet to take pole position for the 2024 Emilia Grand Prix is Charles Leclerc. Now, Charles is sitting at plus 650 odds over on FanDuel, and I think that this is your best bet. I think Charles is back on his top performance when it comes to qualifying pace. I think that, with his performance last couple of weeks in Miami, he was back to being his old self. And I think that with this upgrade package that Ferrari's bringing, along with Carlos, essentially they could propel themselves up to this top step of the podium there. So essentially I would say that their car could easily have the pace advantage going into the race. And so if Charles is on point going into Grand Prix, where they kind of have the home advantage, he could easily take pole position, and if not, possibly win the race. So go ahead and lock him in for your best bet to take pole position. And who I have for my shot in the dark to win the 2024 Emilia Grand Prix is Lando Norris. Now, Lando is sitting at plus 800 odds over on DraftKings, and I think that this is a good possibility that Lando could also pull another victory back to back. I don't think it's very likely, but I think that it could potentially happen if their pace advantage is continuing to be as strong as it was last week. Don't get me wrong; it was a very impressive performance by McLaren, and I'm very satisfied. But there were definitely some things that went our way in order for the win to happen, and so very thankful that they went our way. But I just don't see McLaren having a back-to-back victory. But say they do have that same exact pace advantage. Say these upgrades that Ferrari and Mercedes are bringing aren't as strong. I could see Lando, putting it on pole and possibly, extending the race and getting himself in a position to extend and win. So go ahead, lock him in as your shot in the dark to win the Imola Grand Prix. And who I have for my potential lock to win the 2024 Imola Grand Prix is Charles Leclerc. Now, Charles is sitting at plus 1,400 odds over on DraftKings, and not to beat the dead horse, but I think that Charles could definitely have the pace advantage in the Ferrari car as they are bringing upgrades. I'm anticipating this being a pretty strong upgrade for him. So I'm anticipating them jumping Red Bull, jumping McLaren, and having a pretty strong race, especially since they are there with the home crowd for Ferrari. So I would say go ahead, lock him in as your potential lock to win the 2024 Imola Grand Prix. And who I have for my best bet to win the 2024 Imola Grand Prix is Carlos Sainz. Now, Carlos is sitting at plus 3,000 odds over on FanDuel, and Carlos has shown that he can win a race this year, and especially if they're bringing that upgrade package, I think that they could easily get themselves out there, and even if he has Charles up there with him, I think that Carlos has shown that he definitely has a lot more race pace than Charles does when they're neck and neck. Now, if Charles has, a 3, 4, 5 second lead, Carlos isn't going to press him as hard, but if he is within that 3-second range, I guarantee you Carlos is going to be breathing down his neck and trying to definitely overtake him for the victory. So I would say go ahead, lock in Carlos Sainz for your best bet to win the 2024 Imola Grand Prix. Alrighty, guys, that's all I had. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Be sure to tune in to this weekend for the Imola Grand Prix, as it should be a pretty good race, hopefully. With that being said, looking ahead, next week we actually have the Monaco Grand Prix, which will be the best qualifying session of the year, matched with the absolute worst race of the season with an absolute snooze fest, just because there's just not a lot of overtaking opportunities. So be sure to keep an eye out for my predictions video being dropped next week, and as always, happy racing.